Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Slamhub Wrestling. Myself, Suprit, and this is your AEW Dynamite review for August 18, 2021. Joined by Ridwan. Yeah, what's up, Ridwan?
Hey Suprit, how's it going?
Doing good, man. So, what you think about Dynamite in Houston? I thought it was a good show, and this crowd in Houston was super hot, man.
Yes, yeah, the show itself was pretty good. I mean, if I were to rate it on a scale, or probably I think, should I save it for later? But regardless, I'd say it was a really good show, and it's setting ourselves up for tonight's extravaganza, which is Rampage at the United Center, the first dance, so to speak.
But
So things are in motion as of now.
But before we talk about this card, so is it just me or these segments on Dynamite is increasing week by week? I briefly, talked about this in the Rampage review with Abby. Like, should they consider, cutting down the segments on Dynamite? But it doesn't look like it. They're going to with this rushed, get everyone on the show type of mentality. So, what you think about that?
Yes, like even last week was a very segment heavy show, and this week was no less. So, like the segments have been increasing like way too much. And some cases, like for example, we'll talk about it eventually, but the Paul White situation, like I had mentioned, was like it's something that you would rather see on dark or a dark elevation, but instead it's being featured on Dynamite. So it's gobbling up a lot of TV time, let's just say that. And yeah, I agree, like it's becoming a lot more segment friendly. But eventually, like now that with the addition of Rampage and obviously with the more, high profile changes coming, so they'll take time to figure things out and, then set themselves up in motion on how do they progress for this.
And at least I noticed it a little bit that everyone is, getting, you could see, equal TV time. The main stars and the main storylines are being featured every week. I'm talking about Dynamite.
Yes, like a lot of these, the main stars, all main stars have been like, regularly featured instead of like being given space. I think the one person who was given space was probably Moxley, which again, we'll talk about it later.
But let's talk about the card. So they had Sting and Darby Allin. So they were facing 2.0 in a Texas Tornado tag match. We had Sammy Guevara versus Shawn Spears. Young Bucks. So they defended their AEW tag titles against Jurassic Express. And in the main event, we had Chris Jericho facing MJF. So this was the fifth labor of Jericho and so much more. But before that, if you are new to Slamhub Wrestling, then make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. So we got a kind of a busy 3 to 4 days as we got Rampage, SummerSlam, and seeing the build of SummerSlam. At this point, you should call it Summer Scam. So we'll be doing that, and also NXT Takeover 35. So check all that stuff. So that's why I told you to subscribe, turn on the bell for all notification. But let's get down with Dynamite. So they opened up with Jon Moxley and Eddie Kingston, said that they had something to say. But in their mid entrance, they were attacked by 2.0 and Daniel Garcia. So 2.0 said they kind of call out Sting and Darby Allin. So we are getting this scheduled match with Allin and Sting. So this was a Texas Tornado tag match. So the members of 2.0 are Matt Lee and Jeff Parker. And I think I need to get used to their single names because in NXT, I didn't even know what they were called. I didn't only thing I knew was that they were Ever Rise. That's it.
Chase Parker and Matt Martell was what they were called in NXT.
So about this match, so Sting was entering the match first. Darby Allin, so he tagged the heels from the back. So the match begins. Sting and Allin are in full control, And then we got the involvement of Daniel Garcia. So from here the heels were taking down the baby faces Sting and Allin. So they were fighting in the crowd, they were fighting in the stairways. So at one point in the crowd portion, we see Darby Allin. So he was climbing that stairways or that support beam, whatever you would call it. So he did a dive off that structure and took out all the heels. So we saw Eddie Kingston showing up. So he got rid of Daniel Garcia. So the rest of the people, they were back in the ring. So we would see 2.0 suplexing Darby Allin onto a skateboard, which looked brutal. And Sting, he was double power bombed on his setup table in the ring. But Sting, got up and no sold this, and did his classic, firing up, beating up the chest, and crowd is
Sting
going
is
wild
killing the
here.
business.
Yeah.
Sting is killing the business.
In a ways, but that is classic Sting. That has been a thing for years now. But
I know, I'm just joking.
like yeah, that has been a thing for years now. That's a Sting thing. Like he no sells, certain stuff, and that gets the crowd wild. So that's been a spot for years. But
Yes.
taking to the match, so Sting goes for a double Scorpion Death Drop and locks in a Scorpion Deathlock on both members of 2.0. That's it for 2.0, and you could say this was short but effective. This was a solid opener for Dynamite. What do you think about this match?
I agree. This was a hell of an opener. It's so first, I mean, it starts with obviously Mox and Eddie coming out, and it seems like they have something to say. And then the 2.0 and Garcia crash the party and beat them up. So that puts them over huge in a way because, like, obviously you're not expecting much from them as it stands. So the only person like 2.0 are, I don't want to call them jobbers, but I mean they are more or less like very low on the card, and they're just there to serve the crowd happy in whatever they do. The main attraction of the act is Daniel Garcia, which obviously we'll discuss further, and that obviously puts them over in a way while they are in this program with guys like Sting, who is one of the all-time greats, Darby, who is a current rising star, and Mox and Eddie, who are also established stars. So getting to this match, and Sting comes out. Sting's the pop that Sting got was amazing. Like we mentioned that this crowd was on fire throughout the show, and then Darby comes out and sneak attacks them from behind, which looked cool. And there was this move that 2.0 did on Darby. I think it was inclusive of Garcia, where they do a flapjack on the what do you call this? The like when they were
Basically,
exiting
Darby hit the roof, or you could say the somewhat of a lower roof. That was the scenario over
lower
there.
roof, yeah. Like while they're exiting the concession stands to the crowds. That I think that was what got Darby busted open because he was bleeding at one point. And yeah, I mean it was a wild brawl, and it was short because I mean it's 2.0 and it's Sting, and the Sting no selling it, just getting the crowd more amped up. So like it's like I'm terrible with comparisons, so I apologize for that. It's like getting a like yeah, main course meal and like obviously the starters, which was good. So Sting, this match was a starter in a way, but like the I cringed when Sting took the table bump, given what we know of his I mean this injury record and his, what do you say, like his age. And I was someone who cringed when that table spot happened, and then he no sold it. I was like, what the hell is happening? And yeah, there you go. I mean, Sting just going ape shit and no selling the table spot and putting them in a scorpion dead drop, which looked cool. And yeah, I mean, just the crowd was just happy, and they're also like building towards obviously Darby's best in the world thing on Rampage. So that was also another feature of the show while they were talking about this match. So yeah, there you go. This setting up for Darby, who is going to get his challenge answered on Rampage. But let's see what happens.
But I wanted to talk about John Moxley as well regarding this whole situation. So this happened in later on the night, but I'll plug it here only. So we had a
Yeah.
promo from John Moxley, really great promo, fired up John Moxley here. So he's calling, all the top guys in AEW like, Omega, Page, Christian, and talks about his upcoming match with Daniel Garcia on Rampage. And he was also, talking about, he was the AEW World Champion during a, you could say, hectic time, a pandemic era. So that's it, man. Should be a pretty good, match with Daniel Garcia because he's been being featured a lot on TV. I think this is a third week on a row that is, getting a TV time. But yeah, match should be good. But what do you think is next for John Moxley?
If the rumors were to be believed, like you remember, I think after he lost the US title to Archer, which again Archer also lost to Tanahashi, and Moxley called him out before this match took place between Archer and Tanahashi. So Moxley was he was just openly dissing him. So what I was guessing was that this is a match that was going to happen at All Out, but now like there has been no trace of build for that, and now he's going to call out the contenders. So probably I'm not sure, like I don't think they'll pair him up with Omega once again. Well, now that if Omega and after Omega and Christian get done with their match, but you can't really predict what's going to happen with Moxley. Like in what program will he be featured? I mean, will he be put in? Like with which talent will he be paired with? But yeah, the one thing was Tanahashi, and there is no trace of that. Now let's just see what happens. But this match with Garcia, I'm pretty excited for it. Like it puts a spotlight on Daniel Garcia, and you're going up against someone like Moxley, who is like one of the biggest, the top guy in this promotion. Let's just say, and in such a show, 20,000 people in the crowd, and with a rumored arrival of CM Punk. So this card and this show is going to be huge. And someone like Daniel Garcia, who's 22 years old and is being featured in the main event, is like couldn't get any better for someone like him.
But yeah, about Tanahashi is back in Japan already.
Yeah, so it's not happening. Mox and Tanahashi, that is.
That is going to be a future thing, and that's going to be exclusive in New Japan. But speaking about Tanahashi, I got some news regarding Tanahashi. So in the post-match stuff at Resurgence, after beating Archer for the US title, so he kind of said that he does want to be part of AEW in some form or fashion. So we could expect him, once he comes back to the States, so he could be making some appearance for AEW as well. And you could do a Moxley Tanahashi thing in New Japan, in AEW. So yeah, that's it.
But if he wants to do something in AEW, I think it's going to be more like a one-time or star attraction, because that's what the Forbidden Door is mostly for. And his, what do you say, eventually this Mox and Tanahashi match will take place on Strong, so that's a feud made for that. But as AEW, like he's already made a couple of appearances, I believe. Like one was for Jericho's I think 30th anniversary of pro wrestling, and the other was this before the match of Moxley versus Archer. So the Forbidden Door is, doing its job of getting us talents, and a lot of fantasy booking has been gone. Now, the rumored arrival of Punk and Danielson. So, like we are setting ourselves up for more tastier matches for this. Like if Tanahashi comes to AEW, that is.
We'll have to wait and see. But moving ahead, we had this interview segment with Christian Cage. So he was being interviewed by Shivani. So no surprise here, Don Callis shows up, and Callis here is seen, bragging about, giving Christian his first national break in Canada, and says that Omega, will be giving Christian his first 5-star match. Christian says that these mind games won't be working here, as he is in the head of Omega after, taking the Impact title away from Omega at the last Rampage. So he says he'll be doing the same at All Out when he'll be taking the AEW World Championship, and he calls Don Callis a carny piece of shit. Shivani is cracking up here. I loved it.
Yeah, Shivani is just enjoying himself, like, and also major shout outs to Tony Shivani. He was like, as Excalibur mentioned, he was collecting his frequent flyer mile because he was everywhere throughout the show. So yeah, I mean, he was just collecting a lot of paychecks last night.
Shivani is great, man. He's one of those guys that is happy to be here, and he feels genuine on camera.
Yes, and like years, like I think I've told this in the past that I've watched most of WCW in retrospect, and Shivani, as a result, Shivani has become like one of my all-time favorite commentators to listen to. So yeah, I mean, it's just fun to see him enjoying himself in AEW. But regarding,
go on.
No, I was saying I was getting back to the Christian promo, but if you have something to say about Shivani.
Please do talk about the Christian promo.
Yeah, it was nothing to write home about except like calling Don Callis a carny piece of shit. So Shivani stole the moment for us, let's just say.
So from that, we get to see a clip of Sammy Guevara. So he proposed to his girlfriend Pam in Houston, in his hometown. I wonder who predicted that. Do you know anybody?
Looking at you, brother.
So that's that, man. So congratulations to both great looking couple.
Yes, congratulations to Sammy Guevara on this.
And from that, we quickly get into, a promo by Shawn Spears and Tully Blanchard. They are, in a fake manner, congratulating the engaged couple here. So Shawn Spears, is hyping up the match for his upcoming match with Guevara, and says he would like to make Pam a honorary member of the Pinnacle. And he talks about the Pinnacle catchphrase here: when you're in the Pinnacle, you're always in the top. So he said he would like to have Pam on the top, something like that. Somebody needs to call Cassie Lee and just tell that his boy Shawn Spears is talking all this shit.
He was channeling his inner Kurt Angle from 2005, if you know what I mean.
Oh man, that's on some another level, but I get your reference.
But like, of course, like, a more sober version of that, if you will.
But yeah, man, classic way to get hit. But shall we talk about the match, Guevara versus Spears?
Yes.
So Guevara actually was making his entrance, got a huge pop from the hometown crowd, but he was blind. I think Shawn Spears thought of, blindsiding Guevara here, but, Guevara saw that coming, and we saw a big brawl. And I didn't even realize the match started because it was so chaotic at this point. Like Guevara was actually he hit a spike pile driver on the floor, and then we got underway with the match. I have to say the match was good. It had its moments. Like there was one spot where Guevara does that springboard cutter. It does like a double springboard into a cutter, but Shawn Spears, he just backed away, and that's it. That was a great counter. So there was another spot where both men, Guevara and Spears, they did a double springboard, and they were face to face on the top rope, and Guevara actually did the middle finger here and hit a cutter. So that was yet another great spot. So we see, Shawn Spears, he was constantly, mocking Guevara's girlfriend, who was ringside, by the way. So we see a
Fiance.
guardrail being introduced. So this backfired on, I don't know who introduced it. Was it Guevara or Spears?
It was Guevara who introduced it, but Spears went through it with a Death Valley driver.
So yeah, so I think Spears was originally was supposed to hit a Death Valley driver on Guevara, but Guevara escapes. So Guevara himself hit a version of a Death Valley driver on the guardrail. So back in Guevara hit a 630, and this was supposed to be the finish, but Spears kicked out. Like, this was supposed to be your finish, man. Like, crowd was into it. I didn't know
Spears
why.
is killing the business.
Yeah, I didn't know why you had to give Shawn Spears a lot of offense here, but the match continued. Crowd is loving this. So we see a couple of knees from Guevara channeling his inner Kota Ibushi, and he hit that. What's that finisher he calls it? That reverse.
GTH. Good hell.
So he hit that.
It's what it's called.
So hit GTH and got the win, and that's pretty much it. So thoughts on this match?
I mean, this match, like you mentioned, it had its moments. Like at one point, like at some points, I tuned out. At some points, I was, tuning in. And the crowd was obviously hot for Sammy Guevara because he was in his hometown of Houston, Texas. And like it's refreshing to see a hometown boy not being made to look like a goof. So that was good to see. And then, like, he senses that Shawn Spears is coming to attack him, and he just counters back, and he hits the dive off the ramp onto the floor. That looked like sick. And the crowd was obviously, instantly hot for Sammy Guevara, and they were like, behind him, getting his offense on Spears. And shout out to Shawn Spears, by the way. Like, this was probably the best that he looked ever since joining AEW, maybe, because this was easily his best match according to me. Like, there are a few matches, but like it runs its course after a while, but this one like kept you going. And a lot of these kickouts, a lot of these offense that he was taking, so it made him look strong and tough. On one hand, you could say, like, he's someone who didn't need that because he's more or less an enhancement talent and the fall guy of the stable, the Pinnacle, just so that the others in the stable are kept strong. But sometimes you got to give him his moments too, his due as well, that how he is a solid hand in the ring. That's what he's been called throughout his career, and he's looked good in many times. But this one was like I don't want to say his magnum opus, but like, this is the best that he's looked since joining AEW, and this was his best match, and all thanks to Sammy Guevara. And all his kickouts and his toughness of Spears it gave more reasons to cheer for Sammy Guevara, as like, get behind him and beat the piss out of this guy. And he was healing it up quite decently, even if it was a little cheap of going all 2005 Kurt Angle on Guevara's fiance. But yeah, I mean, overall it was a really good match. And like, there was like tiny bit of shock factor. There was a lot of hometown pride, and all factors that you would associate in a match were played pretty well in this. So yeah.
So from that, about Guevara, I got something on him. Maybe a future booking or a future prediction, or whatever you want to call it. I got something on him, but I will talk about it when we get to that particular segment. But we got Andrade. So actually, it was the Death Triangle. They were being interviewed. So Andrade, jumps in and they go a little back and forth. We are, getting Pac versus Andrade at All Out. But Andrade had, some stipulation, something like that. And from there you go, man. Match should be good. I assume.
This should be like so far. I mean, we've mentioned this that Andrade's run so far in AEW, even though it's like early months, it's been a little It could be a lot better, and I think this match with Park will certainly get his AEW run on the right track perhaps. And then I like the callback from Pac in this promo that he was like in Chicago. He's treated well there, and this is the place where he beat the shit out of Kenny Omega in his match on 2 weeks' notice. So that also makes him a more tough bastard, if you will. And then he's like, if you got to bring yourself a pair of bollocks in our match, and what makes you think you have a chance against this bastard? And then Andrade comes in, and then he's like, I didn't get what was he saying. Like, if you win, you have to listen to me. Like, maybe it was like a wrong hearing on my part, but I didn't get what was he trying to say. Like, I got the gist of it, but he said that if you win, you'll have to adhere to my stipulations and some stuff like that. And then they were saying dead triangle. They were calling out dead triangle. And then Chavo says that you're not going to become champion under Park's leadership. And the dead triangle have always said that they're not working for him. They are equal with Park. So it's become a tiny bit convoluted, but the match will probably save that. But yeah, I mean, as a match, I'm excited for Park versus Andrade. The story is doing a little. I'm scratching my head at this a little bit.
It's happening, man. Lucha Bros maybe mostly betraying Pac, and joining Andrade over there.
I don't know. I mean, I personally don't want it to happen. Like, if the Forbidden Door is concerned, like, I would wish that AEW would work with Ring of Honor and get Roosh and Dragon Lee to face the Lucha Bros, because we recently, like, even ROH have been openly tweeting like, with the recent mass releases in WWE, who do you think we should sign? And then they again tweeted like, with the Forbidden Door in AEW, who do you think we should work with? So like, they've been pretty open about working with AEW in a way. And yeah, I mean, I hope that happens, but I don't really envision that triangle betrayal. And besides that, like, is it just me, or have the Lucha Bros been the Big Show / Paul White of AEW? I know it's a terrible comparison, but like, at one point they're just heels, and the other point they're baby faces, and you don't even know where exactly are they turning. Like, every single time you have to tune in weekly to find out on which alignment are they.
But does it matter? Like, heels or baby faces, Pentagon, he'll be doing that Zero Meadow thing, and this crowd will eat it up. Phoenix Phoenix, will continue to be, the top 10 wrestler in the world. What else do you need?
Yeah. And I mean, you could call them tweeners in a way, because like, there are no proper alignment, even Park for that matter, because and Park, I think, has been babyface ever since the Lucha Bros split up from Eddie Kingston and when this stable was going on. Remember that?
I do remember that, but I would mind, if they break up, possibly Pac going, as a singles, I loved that heel bastard gimmick he was doing. He's still doing that, but I loved that version of Pac.
Mm-hmm. I think this is still working for me, and like, he's still a tough guy who just likes kicking ass. So nothing has changed for me, at least, having to enjoy Pac and, like, seeing his character. But with Lucha Bros, I'm a little skeptical, because I don't think being with Andrade or under Andrade would be of little help. And is it just me, or is Chavo Guerrero a placeholder for a certain nature boy to come in and join to and manage the stable?
I don't know. Maybe do you actually pair up Ric Flair and Andrade together, or
If last
do you pair
if
Ric
last week was
Flair with the Pinnacle? Maybe do some kind of I don't know what's the word you're looking for. Maybe hype up the
For
Pinnacle.
Yeah, I think Ric Flair with Pinnacle works a lot better than him with Andrade. But if last week was any indication that Ric Flair was in fucking AAA and he was putting Omega in a figure four leg lock. So 2021 is wild as it is, but uh, the obvious way to pair up Ric Flair would be with Andrade if if the Triple Mania main event was any indication. And but I like your pitch that Ric Flair would be better suited in Pinnacle though. But where would that leave Tully Blanchard?
No, you could do something like that. You could, give what's the one. That's why I'm asking. What's the word? Like hype up the Pinnacle. That's it. Maybe, or if you want to do Andrade, then do Andrade. I actually don't
I mean,
want Ric Flair.
Andrade is the more safe. Yeah.
That's why I actually don't. I'm not hyped over Ric Flair showing up on AEW television.
I mean, Melzer himself said that Ric Flair is a lock-in for AEW once his supposed no compete clause expires. But yeah, even I'm not particularly excited, but I think if someone like Ric Flair would be a bigger shot in the arm for Andrade than. And as much as I hate to say it, because I like Chavo Guerrero personally, and his role with Andrade has been a little, I mean, it's been decent, but it's not been given like enough chances for me to like just go and, just be awed by it. But I think like as a managerial role for Chavo works in a lot of ways. It's just that, I just want to wait and watch on that. But if like Ric Flair, the bigger fish is available, then why not use that?
By
Is
the way,
what
did you
I'm
watch
concerned.
Omega versus Andrade from Triple Mania?
I watched it in bits and pieces, like obviously the main highlights, but I mean, I didn't get the time to watch it except like a few, the few moments here and there. Have you?
No, I was busy watching Resurgence, seeing my boy Tanahashi play air guitar. That's it.
Yeah, the
Oh, like,
you made the right choice. Like,
yeah. And by the way, did you hear the rumor of, as Ric Flair was with Andrade in Triple Mania? Did you hear the rumor of Ric Flair taking someone to Space Mountain?
I did, and he did deny that, but it's just Ric Flair being Ric Flair.
Oh
But
man,
it was a very continue.
I love the banter on Twitter, man. That was pretty entertaining.
Yes, but it was. I mean, Ric Flair is just being Ric Flair at the age of 72. So oldest ride, longest line. Woo!
Anyways, let's talk about Dan Lambert. He's back on AEW TV after 3 to 4 weeks. Talks about that incident from Road Rager, where he was actually quote unquote telling the truth about the AEW community, the AEW fans, AEW product in
The
general.
AEW community.
You get my drift.
Yes.
So he's talking about this entire fan base, and the company says that AEW is not the answer for an alternative in wrestling, something like that. And he's completely shitting on people here. And I like last time I said, this is what I think AEW wanted to do. Like if they would have brought in Jim Cornette, this is what you would have gotten here.
Yes, he was from the cult of Cornette, like 100%. And he was like mentioning Dana White. He's like, if there are any contractual issues that UFC fighters can't compete in wrestling, I'll have Dana White handle that. And it's a very tiny bit like a very bigoted promo, bigoted. And then he's like, yeah, AEW is hopping the train on cancel culture and you guys are soft. And it was like a very
that cancel culture part, that was spot on.
it's for true. And then like, but it was a very back in my day promo, like what he cut the last month, like early in July on Road Rager. And then like he brought Junior Dos Santos and Andre Arlovsky, two former heavyweight champions, as backup. So nice to see them in an AEW ring too. and then he issues an open challenge that anybody from the back can come and like just prove how tough you are, and then I'll probably give you some money for that. And no surprises, it's answered by Lance Archer, who was missing from AEW TV to fulfill his New Japan commitments. Pretty busy boy. And then like Dan Lambert just goes and like he just he's like people who chant AEW are living in your mother's basements. You're probably virgins. You're fucking stupid. Yada
Playing
yada.
Dungeons
And
of Dragon.
yeah, playing Dungeons of Dragons, and like it was a very Jim Cornette type promo. So you have your variety nailed down in that aspect. So coming
Man,
back to Lance,
this promo,
yeah.
you're talking about the segment after the promo, but the promo bit was intense. I thought it was great.
Yo, it was like Dan Lambert is, he's obviously a natural on the mic. He's like a natural shit talker coming from mixed martial arts, where shit talking is like the name of the game. And like he was. I mean, we've mentioned this that he was playing superbly as Lashley's mouthpiece in Impact back in 2017, even though like it was their darkest days, but like that was probably the best act on the show apart from Eli Drake as world heavyweight champion. And and Dan Lambert is also actively managing in pro wrestling as of now. He is the manager of Filthy Tom Lawler in MLW. So
I didn't know that.
That's still going as of now. And like this promo was supposed to happen last week, but due to some travel issues, I think Dan Lambert couldn't make it, so they had to postpone it to this week. And apart from me, everyone was predicting that Filthy Tom Lawler would probably be in AEW as backup to Dan Lambert. But
why?
You could, I mean, the obvious answer is probably this American Top Team thing, and like Filthy Tom Lawler is a part of American Top Team. Dan Lambert is head of American Top Team, and they are an act in MLW. So why not probably get that in AEW as well? So that's what I was predicting. But I mean, like a bit in a change of pace, like Dos Santos and Arlovsky were also pretty decent backups on any given day. But if Dan Lambert is going to be a thing on AEW in future, then I mean, it's a no-brainer that they get in Filthy Tom Lawler to wrestle on AEW.
So while this promo was done, like you said, Archer showed up, but he was attacked by the Man of the Year, Scorpio Sky and Ethan Page. So that's it.
Nice to see them back.
Yeah, 2-on-1 attack on Archer. Archer made to look like a complete geek, and that's pretty much it. Like, I don't know where you go from here. Like, I don't know what's the point of... Yeah, Dan Lambert is killing it on the mic, but where is this all leading towards?
I mean, like Lance Archer, man, poor Lance Archer. He's on a very topsy-turvy ride in AEW since probably Revolution of this year. Like, you don't even know what direction is he in. Like, sometimes he's a pretty well-featured act, sometimes he's going against Sting. Like, he's also become a big AEW's Big Show in a way, where on one week he'll be a heel, the other week he'll be a babyface. So sometimes he's attacking Sting, sometimes he's dissing Sting, and sometimes he's attacking Miro, and that whole thing. But Miro, with the emergence of Miro, who's like a well recognized big man, like Archer's services became pretty much needless at that point. But even though that Archer offers a lot of variety, is like this high flying big man, and that IWGP US Championship run was like a good refreshing change of pace for him as well. But he's lost that too. So now you don't really know where this is heading. But I like this with the new feud with Men of the Year, obviously, like it's something a bit fresh, and it's always good to see Men of the Year on TV, especially like we've spoken in great lengths about how great Ethan Page is. So what I'm guessing is this match is going to eventually happen, a tag match, probably not on All Out, at any of their special AEW Dynamite, and Lance Archer gets a special partner. I
And it's
have
not
a
going to
certain
be
someone.
David Hart Smith or Davey Boy Smith.
Easily not. Easily not. He's signed to WWE back, right?
I think so. When the crowds came
Yeah,
back.
and I think he was featured on a match on SmackDown. But I have a certain greater person in mind, better than David Hart Smith.
Is he part of his particular gun?
Yes.
Are you talking about Minoru Suzuki?
Yes, sir. Bang on. So
Because he's
that's
coming to
good.
the States next month.
Yeah. Is like I didn't know that he was coming. I thought like this will be just for a star attraction. But
Why
what
would
is he
we?
coming for?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, New Japan Strong and the other big shows for New Japan.
Yes. Does he have any of his GCW commitments in next month or something?
But why would the GCW thing is cancelled? Now the only commitment is New Japan.
I mean, there are going to be a few GCW shows in the next month. Like Matt Cardona has been he's been hyping them up as in his shtick. But I mean, the New Japan Strong is like the easy indication. And like Archer, I think there was like someone pointed out on Twitter that Archer was wearing his Suzuki Gun ring gear during his match with Tanahashi, or probably like last night. So that's also a bit of a tease, I believe.
I
But
would love that.
yeah,
I
I
would
mean,
love that. I would love
yeah,
if
me too.
they bring in Suzuki.
Yes, and it's going to be an amazing match, regardless. Like having Suzuki involved and having like the chemistry of the Man of the Year, and obviously, Archer is also a solid wrestler. So it's going to be an amazing match, at least for me. I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it just by seeing Minoru Suzuki. That is.
I hope the AEW crowd do justice for Kazin Inare as well. But
Yes. I'm already getting
anyways,
goosebumps now talking about Kazunina.
we have Chris Jericho hyping up the main event for Dynamite here, the fifth labor of Jericho. Really good promo by Jericho here, and it's been a trend for this week's Dynamite. Like whoever is doing promo is killing it on the mic.
Yes, and like it was a very 80s babyface promo from Jericho with a modern twist, if you will. Like he's like, I've endured pain all these weeks. I've endured the labors of Jericho to fight for the ultimate prize, that is MJF. And like he's hyping up the crowd, like right here in Houston, Texas, and the crowd pops. And then he's like, I'm going to beat the hell out of MJF. And it's like he just called him a jerk off friend, something.
Something like that.
That's that's about
That's
it. But it was an effective promo from Jericho to get the crowd hyped up for the main event.
so. Moving on, we had Shivani. So he called out Paul Wight, the guy who helped him and his son last week from QT Marshall and the factory. So Paul Wight, shows up, said it was good to be back in the ring, and then he was immediately interrupted by QT Marshall and the factory. By the way, I have to give it to QT Marshall, man. He can really do a great job, getting that hit.
Yes, he's a pretty solid promo, QT Marshall.
So, we see Marshall, he said, Houston, we got a big problem. Before that, he did some other reference which went over my head, but that's that. So, Marshall is talking about Paul Wight here, said, you are just here, as an announcer, not a wrestler. And, he actually brings up Paul Wight's medical history. So we see, you say some X-rays of, Paul Wight's surgery on his hip. Said there are some metal disc or something like that, fused on Paul Wight's hip. And we see a surgery photo, something like that, bringing up all his medical history. Kind of a cheap way to, get heal it. What do you think?
Yes, we got to see Big Show's ass on live TV. And then Big Show himself is proud about that scar. Regardless, I mean, I'd say Big Show. Should I say Big Show?
I was
God damn it.
about to
Okay.
say it is going to be hard,
I could,
to get used to Paul White
yeah,
and not Big Show.
yeah. So Paul White, let me come clean about that. So I mean, this was a very like it was. So it did its job for me. Like it was building up hype for their match at All Out. So he's hyping himself and like the crowd. He's like saying, it's good to be back, and if given a chance, he'd do it over again. And then QT comes out with a very solid promo to get heat. And then he's like, as QT is like, as someone with a backstage role, I have a lot of information on sensitive topics. And then Big Show is like, you don't know about what I'm going to say. And then he announces that he's wrestling at All Out, Paul White, that is. He's facing QT Marshall, and the QT's expression was hilarious. Like he's just like in a shock face.
The camera
And that's
panning
pretty.
and zooming on his face was really good.
Yes, it was super good. And yeah, that's it. So
But segment was really good. Came off really good.
yeah,
But why All Out?
yeah. It's like I had mentioned this last week that it's a good advertisement for Dark Elevation, where if you want to get in more viewers for your show, this was probably a good way to do that.
Not even Dark
But yeah,
Elevation. You could have featured him on Dynamite or Rampage as well.
Dynamite. Yeah.
Why do a filler for the pay-per-view?
This is something like a match on All Out is, I mean, this is something that would probably take place on buy-in. Like it's a very buy-in-esque match, but someone with that name value, you have to feature him on the main card,
No,
right?
he's definitely
Someone
being
like,
on the main card, because if you see the card for Double or Nothing and how that show came off this year's Double or Nothing, he will be in that filler spot. Like,
yeah, it's just maybe the cool down spot to
yeah,
get the crowd and back to their senses.
if people are interested, they will be interested, or we'll see a dead crowd. That's it.
Yes, like probably the Cody versus Anthony Ogogo type. Like you're not exactly looking forward to this, but it's going to serve its purpose of probably getting the crowd back to normalcy.
It is what it is. We said
It
that
is
it's
what it
going to
is.
be should have been featured in a very low, maybe a spot on Dynamite or any other TV show. But yeah, that's it.
Yeah, pretty much.
But moving on, we had Jade Cargill, a promo from Jade Cargill. So we see Mark Sterling. He was talking about Kiera Hogan. Said that Kiera Hogan has been making recent AEW appearances, and we are getting Jade Cargill versus Kiera Hogan for Rampage. And yeah, that's pretty much it. What do you have anything on Kiera Hogan? Because I've seen bits and pieces of her while I was watching Impact pay-per-views. She is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, she is like a decent wrestler, and I think my only exposure to Kira Hogan was around 2018 while I was watching Impact, like week in and week out. At that time, she was a well featured act, and yeah, I mean, then I don't know what happened with her, and yeah, as a wrestler, she's fine, but it's more or less a showcase for Jade Cargill to show how dominant she is, and she's been improving a lot, like in the ring. Like I've seen a few dark matches of hers. She looks pretty good.
Like she's being protected heavily and being featured in small spots here and there, not featuring her heavily.
Yeah, and yeah, obviously, like she's very green still, and she is like if I think I don't know, someone had said it that if you were to award your world championship on someone based on looks alone, Jade Cargill would probably hold it for like a couple years. So it's true in a way, and she looks the part like of a certain strong, and she's been featured like in a lot of shows, like even in the Rampage intro or the hype video that was there. She was the first person on on the video. So that explains volume of how much AW sees the value in her. And the whole her gimmick is also pretty good. I mean, especially being paired with smart Mark Sterling, who's like a lawyer, and he's cashing in on Jade Cargill's popularity. So it works in that case as well. But overall, I would say I'm looking forward to this match between Cargill and Kira Hogan. And yeah, like while they were running down the card, right, on like before the main event, they usually run down the card for next week and for Rampage. It looked pretty funny when Excalibur was like, and then next we have Jade Cargill, that bitch, versus Kira Hogan for this. I was like,
Oh yeah,
are you trying to like say that it's a nickname, or were you calling her by that? That was very hilarious from Excalibur. Why the way he said it, that is.
that's it. Jade Cargill is that bitch.
Yeah, she is hashtag Jade Brand. We'll
But from
probably be giving her some money in this by
but
talking about
from
her.
that, we get to the AEW Tag Team Championship match. This was the Young Bucks versus Jurassic Express. I thought this match was good. We did, get see some interference from the rest of the elite. So there was one spot where Luchasaurus was just going wild on the Bucks here. So Brandon Cutler, he hops on the apron and he has a flare in his hand. I laughed.
Yes.
Like, am I watching professional wrestling or am I watching Jurassic Park? Like, what's going on?
Yes, it's pro wrestling itself, but yeah, continue.
Yeah, like I said, the match was good. We are seeing a lot of interferences here. Like the opening where we see Jungle Boy and I think it was Nick Jackson. That opening was really solid. Luchasaurus, he did his big man spots, and we did see some, hot high spots here and there. And the final parts with the near falls was pretty solid. But as we get to the end, so there was something going on with Jungle Boy, and like he had someone in a roll up or something like that. We see the other buck,
It was Matt.
yeah, we see some assist, and they quickly hit a BT trigger on Jungle Boy, and that was pretty much it. So, what you think about this tag team title match here on Dynamite?
Like, okay, before I start, talking about this match, like how you mentioned of the roll up and the other buck coming, that's like an accurate depiction of Nick Jackson of the past 5 years, because like people have clearly seen Matt as the star of the act and Nick was just there. And again, like what I'm trying
It's
to
a
get to
mixed.
is
It's a mixed. You could say it's not that scenario that one is the Shawn, one is the Marty.
no,
Both
it's
are. I
but
see both the bucks equal, but I would agree that Matt Jackson stands out. At least he's good on the
yes,
mic. He's way better on the mic compared to Nick.
yeah, Nick is a terrible actor, in with all due respect, but he's really coming into his own, like in this heel shtick that they've been doing. And like I was watching the BT of this past episode of BT, and like from their entrance of last week, where Nick Jackson is just dancing on the BT theme song. Like he's looking good in this heel way. Like he's finally starting to come out on his own. While every time I see him in BT, like acting in skits, I cringe a little, because Matt is he's someone who's more comfortable acting. Nick is just there. But yeah, coming to this match, like obviously the crowd was hot, especially for Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus. Like the pop that they got was amazing. And like there was one spot in particular that when Jungle Boy was running from the ropes, and then Nick Jackson was on the apron, and then Jungle Boy gives him a head scissors, and Nick Jackson is on the floor. So that was a pretty sweet looking move from Jungle Boy. And Jungle Boy is also, he's been making waves over the past couple of years in the ring. And, with his wrestling style, and given that how good has he become in 2 years, and he's only going to get even better. I I don't want to compare again, but he, I don't know, he kind of is in that Finn Balor territory of someone like who is pretty cruiserweight, but he can fly and he can do a lot of crazy moves. And Finn Balor has become a legend in himself, and Jungle Boy would probably get there in another 5 to 10 years. He would reach that top status. But yeah, so like a lot of moves were, pretty sweet looking moves throughout the match. So another highlight was Matt Jackson doing a crossbody on Luchasaurus from like at the top right of the ring outside. And then Luchasaurus's chokeslam sequence of how he evades like a super kick and a double clothesline. He does a front flip and then he puts them into a chokeslam. And there was another move where Jungle Boy was trying to do a superplex off of Luchasaurus's shoulders.
That
That
was the
Jungle
kind
Boy
of they were this close to botching that.
of yes, like Jungle Boy legit tripped from Luchasaurus's shoulders, and like it looked like a superplex, but Excalibur called it a brainbuster. So I
Because he
don't know
landed on his head.
yes. And but it could have gone wrong in a lot of ways, but kudos to them too for pulling it off properly. And there are a lot of the obvious kickouts, a lot of no selling, a lot of super kicks, which is to be expected in a Young Bucks match. And like I have a bit of a gripe that I have a bit of a doubt that I want to ask you
Shoot.
while this match was going on. Okay, so like this match, all of this is going on, like the Bucks are distracting sorry, the Good Brothers have been distracting the referee, and Jungle Boy has been has gotten Matt Jackson beat for the 3 count, and then Nick Jackson has been interrupting and like breaking up the pinfall. He did it twice in a sequence. So if you are, not, I'm just not telling you in specific, but if you're a tag team nerd or if you're a wrestling nerd, like trace yourself back to 2018 when Undisputed Era were wrestling Trent Seven and Tyler Bate for the NXT Tag Team Championship. And then when Trent Seven was in pain and he was while he was what do you say, being worked upon, and like whenever in pinfall or submission, Tyler Bate had broken up, but he broke up once. The second time they couldn't do it the second time because Tyler Bate had already burnt his break up the pinfall thing, and then he throws in the towel because of that, and the match is called off. The Undisputed Era wins. So if you're using that tag rule / logic in this, so it's out of the window. So is that an actual thing, or was there just made up rules to fit the narrative?
It depends on the referee, man. It depends on the referee. But
Yes.
if you want to, by the way, Rick Knox is my least favorite referee in this industry.
Yes. Yes. I don't know. Like, I don't really like watching Rick Knox whenever he's there in the ring. But I'm sensing a pattern because he's there in every Young Buck / Omega match. Like, yeah, he's been refereeing all of their matches. So, am I sensing a pattern here?
He's kind of the paid referee in a way for the league. But on that topic, I did like, Don Callis at one part, I think this referee is against us, something like that. So that was pretty sweet.
Yes, I don't know. I'm sensing like there will be like if they ever decide to do a fuck finish, whenever if the Bucks or Omega are about to lose the championship, and then Rick Knox just stops the count, gives the babyface a middle finger, and then walks off. I don't know. I could probably see
Maybe
that.
a junior
Yeah,
Nature Boy, something like that.
Junior Nature Boy.
Like,
Oh, you mean Charles Robinson? Okay, Lil
yes,
Nate. Yeah, probably, but he could fit that, the crooked referees who's being paid by the elite to ref their matches.
I would love that.
Similar to how Nick Patrick was in NWO. He was their crooked referee and he was like a senior official in WCW back in the day.
I would love that. And by the way, in Rick
Yeah.
Knox, can he actually take bumps? Did you know that?
Yes. And if history is to be believed, like Rick Knox, like back in PWG, that is, Rick Knox used to hate the Young Bucks guts. And when they offered him to work in AEW in a segment, I think at an indie show, he just begrudgingly accepted that. And then like Matt and Nick were just addressing their history before offering him the contract. So there is a history between Bucks and Rick Knox, but I could see Rick Knox being someone who is, like who is also associated with the elite in a way, like similar to how Nick Patrick was in WCW back in the day.
You could do that. You could do that. So there was another spot about this match. There was another spot where we see Marco Stunt getting involved, and he was actually killed by Kenny Omega with a steel chair. So Marco is dead. So then we see Christian
Yeah,
Cage coming out. He spared Omega, so they brought to the back.
that looks sweet.
While
That
the
spear looked like clean as well.
So yeah, that was the entire match. And is it just me, or did the crowd die when they didn't have Jurassic Express winning this match? Because there was some expectation that they were going to get the belts here, but it didn't happen.
Yes. And another spot from this match was Luchasaurus doing a moonsault on the Good Brothers outside the ring before the Bucks hit the BT trigger to Jungle Boy for the win. So that also looked sweet. I mean, this match was it was a spot filled match, but a lot of these spots were done pretty cleanly, except the Brainbuster.
So shall we talk about the post-match stuff? So what
Yep.
happened was the Elite continued the assault on the baby faces. So we see Doc Gallows. He actually, was carrying Christian to the ring. So the baby faces, all the guys are being beaten up. Omega, it's the one-winged angel of Christian Cage, and Don Callis did a fake pinfall and got the 3 count here as the Elite pose, and that's pretty much it.
Yes, and there was a moment where even Don Callis was stomping on Christian's face, and then he starts limping. That got a pop out of me in a way.
That Don Callis fellow is really great.
Yeah, like easily one of the best managers today.
And shall we get to this interview stuff? And we heard some big news from that. So what happened was the Elite. So they were bragging and they were gloating in this interview segment with Shivani. And Shivani actually informed them that Tony Khan has given the word that there will be you could say, a 4-man mini tournament to crown the next contender for the Young Bucks at All Out. So this mini tournament consists of fill me in if I get someone wrong. Pride Party, Jurassic Express, War City Blondes, and
Lucha Brothers.
yes. So all these 4 tag teams will be in a tournament starting from Rampage, where we will see Jurassic Express versus Pride Party, if I'm not wrong.
It's Jurassic Express versus Private Party on this week's Rampage, and next week, next week is Varsity Blondes versus the Lucha Bros, and the winner of this eliminator tournament gets to face the Young Bucks at All Out in a steel cage match. So that's like another stipulation added, which is good because we've been seeing a lot of the Good Brother interference, so it's just to cancel that. So it's good to see in that case.
So who do you think is getting the win here?
I mean, safe bet would be Lucha Bros, but if you want to go for the surprise element, it's probably Varsity Blondes, for the sake of surprise. But yeah, I mean, I would say Lucha Bros because they even, like I had mentioned, they even teased it last week during the promo with Pac that the Lucha Bros need to, focus on winning the tag championship. And even like this week when they announced, like the promo with Pac and Andrade happened after this announcement from Tony Khan. And then Chavo was also like, if you become champions in your eliminator tournament, you're still going to you won't be champions with Pac. So that was it. So they've been teasing heavily on the Lucha Bros becoming tag champions. So this is probably a way to get them into the title picture and face the Bucks at All Out. And obviously they also have history with the Bucks at All Out, in that Escalar de la Muerte ladder of death match, and during the first All Out in 2019. So that's a good callback in that
They
sense.
could do Bucks versus Lucha Bros, or they could go back to Jurassic Express again because they were also kind of got screwed out
Screwed
of that
up.
match.
Yeah, they could, and it also aligns with how Kenny is facing Christian and Jurassic Express facing the Bucks. So it's in that storyline too. So it works in that way. So probably, okay, now I'm doubting myself if it could be
I
Jurassic
have I
Express
have
or it
given you
could
two
be,
scenarios now.
yes. I don't know. I'd stick to Lucha Bros. I mean, I hope Lucha Bros win the tag titles at some day, because it's overdue. How, like, Penta should have. I personally think that Penta should have been a singles act and should have been excelling in probably as TNT champion or something. But this also works for me.
So after hearing this news, the elite, especially Don Callis, is all livid, and he's actually blaming Shivani. And Shivani says, I'm not the booker here. Tony Khan is." So that's that. But
The-
yeah, like we predicted, it has to be either Jurassic Express or the Lucha Bros. So we'll have to wait and see.
yep.
So moving on, we hear from Dr. Britt Baker, TMD. So she was being interviewed by Shivani, and we also hear from her new partner, you could say. This was Jamie Hater, and she actually sounded really good.
Yes, she like, they have a history together. They address that. I think they were like some kind of act in Stardom. I don't know about that,
Was Britt Baker in
but
Stardom?
I think she was briefly. I know Tony Storm was. I know Diana Purazzo was. I think Britt Baker was also, because they were saying that Baker and Jamie Hater go way back. So, and Jamie Hater was like a pretty featured act on Stardom. So this Britt Baker maybe like, I'm not sure about that, but maybe that was a thing. And the big callback, I mean, I like the attention to detail in this case. I think Shawn Rosa pointed out on Twitter that Baker and Jamie Hater have a history within AEW. When Baker won their match on an October 23rd episode, into October 23rd to 2019 episode in Pittsburgh, and Baker and Hater become a thing in Pittsburgh too. So that's like a good callback in a way. And then, like, this promo from Jamie Hater was pretty solid. Like, she was just saying, she was calling out Red Velvet, saying that she enjoyed kicking her head down and she could probably do it again next week. And another tidbit is, Britt Baker openly dissing Chris Statlander. She's like, Statlander is probably best friends with everyone in the AW locker room. I'm sure, like, and then she tells Tony Schiavone, I'm sure if she asks you, you will be her best friend too. And yeah, so they are probably teasing this for All Out. Like, this could be a match between Baker and Statlander for the pay-per-view.
Yeah, that has to be it because they did something on the Rampage show where Chris Statlander got involved with Britt Baker. So as of now, we're predicting either Thunder Rosa or Statlander. So I think they're going with Statlander first. So I think this is it for the paper.
Yes, I mean, it only makes sense that way, as Statlander has been, like, pretty heavily featured on the Dynamites all these weeks. And also, like, she just beat Nyla Rose last week, so that also puts her up, on the pedestal. And this is probably the best way of getting her into that title picture. So there you go.
And by the way, this Jamie Hater pairing with Britt Baker, it will actually work. It will do wonders for Jamie Hater because it's being said that she's a good worker. So that's cleared. The other, getting over, that will, that's going to be an automatic thing now that she is paired with the hottest act in AEW. So there you go.
Yep. And Jamie Hater, I mean, people like once it happened, people are actually usually picking sides. The tribalism is wild on wrestling Twitter. That she was apparently in a tag team with B Priestley, and
Yep.
both of them went their opposite ways. So Priestley is in WWE now, and Jamie Hayter is in AEW, and then everyone was picking, like, probably because of B's history as outside the ring. People were so quick to defending Jamie Hayter as like she is the nicer one. And to be honest, I don't know much about Jamie Hayter besides like a few matches here and there, but I'm excited for this pairing, especially because it's Britt Baker. I've been sounding like a broken record on the show that Britt Baker is one of my favorite wrestlers, favorite women's wrestlers. So it's going to be fun, seeing all of them together, and especially how this pairing pans out later on.
So we mentioned Thunder Rosa. So she was in action next. So it was Thunder Rosa versus Penelope Ford. So the situation with Penelope Ford was she came out to just normal leather wear, not actual ring gear. So I think the story behind that is that in the Houston airport, her luggage didn't make through. So that's that.
I didn't know of that, but I mean, there you go. So this match was more or less about Thunder Rosa. Like, they built it from the previous episode of Dark, where Penelope Ford was wrestling someone, and she won the match and wouldn't let go of the Muta lock. Which while Thunder Rosa was on commentary, she immediately ran to attack Penelope, but
What?
she escapes.
You almost messed
But
up Penelope.
yeah, I don't know. Like, while I was watching this match, okay, and I can't forget how our great Booker T was like, he was reviewing an AEW match and he just called the Penelope during every point. So it's become a meme in a way. While any wrestling critic or YouTuber, whenever they talk about a Penelope Ford match, they always call her, thanks to the great Booker T, how he how he called her.
This
So yeah.
speaking about this match, the match was good. Problem was it was kind of sloppy, and I would understand it from Penelope's side because she is not traditional ring gear, and that's you can't wrestle no, in normal you know you get my point, right? Like you need ring
Yeah.
gear to be be a little smoother, and because there was this one spot where Thunder Rosa sent Penelope to the corner, and I don't know what Penelope was doing. He was just spinning. Like, was she in a wrestling match or was she in a dance contest? Like, what's going on there?
Yeah. And I mean, this match was more or less about, just talking about this match, like, this match was more or less a homecoming for Thunder Rosa, as she's in Texas now, and Texas has kind of become her adopted home. And there was, like, Rosa was dominant throughout the first portion of the match, and she gets cut off. Her momentum gets cut off by a smooth looking cutter from, see what I did there? Cut and cutter from Penelope Ford outside the ring, and like, that cutter looked pretty smooth, like like DDP / Orton types. And then throughout the ad break, Penelope Ford was dominating on Rosa. While this match was sloppy in parts, but it was more or less just to show, like, Thunder Rosa is at the top of our rankings, and she needs a dominant win to probably go ahead. And that missile dropkick, I don't know who was it. I think it was Penelope who did that on Rosa on the lower rope. So she does a running missile dropkick, and that looked like nasty because whoever was taking that bump, like, she just like bumped twice on the rope. Which, I mean, taking bumps on the rope is terrible as it is. And then there was like a sequence of Penelope Ford doing the haluva kicks. She did two haluva kicks, and the third one Rosa escapes and just beats her down. And then, like, Penelope was locking her Indian death lock on Rosa, which she reverses twice. The second time results in her win as she wrenches Penelope's arm and Penelope taps out. So this match was, like you mentioned, it was sloppy in parts, but it was good. Like for what it was, like it was more or less for Thunder Rosa to go over huge. And there was an interesting tidbit on commentary when I think it was Excalibur who said that both Penelope Ford and Thunder Rosa have made their wrestling debuts only 2 months apart, which shocked me because Thunder Rosa only debuted in pro wrestling in 2014, and to from there to now, I mean, she's one of the top names in wrestling. While and even during the match, while both mentioning the time of their debuts, Ford was still looked at as a rookie, while Rosa was like the veteran Thunder Rosa. So that was a bit weird, and it's kind of shocking that Thunder Rosa only debuted like 7 years ago in wrestling.
I think she picked up the business very quickly, like in that Kurt Angle, Lesnar type of category. You can put there.
Yes, and she also fought in mixed martial arts too,
So there you go.
Thunder Rosa. Yeah.
She's
It's even
she's
yeah.
actually very solid as a competitor,
Yeah. Yes,
and
I mean she's also become one of my favorites.
and
I always look forward to a Thunder Rosa
and
match.
she's becoming a huge fan favorite. Like, did you hear that pop?
Yes. Of course. Like I mean the obvious reason was also there, like she was in Texas, it's her home territory. But apart from that, even then, like being the type of wrestler that she is, and like her stature on the AEW card itself, like she's becoming very, very, very popular as it is, like especially thanks to her introduction last year when AEW was borrowing women's talent from NWA with her and Serena Deeb as well.
I didn't.
So like yeah.
Yeah, go on.
No, I'm saying like that the existence of the NWA talent like Rosa and Serena Deeb did help AEW's women's division in a lot of ways. So this is probably putting them up on like kind of in a way like a gratitude of sense, but because like now they are officially fully signed with AEW, both Serena Deeb and Thunder Rosa. So yeah, you were saying something.
Like, I was about to say that I didn't even knew a lot about Thunder Rosa, before she came to AEW. Now I'm a big fan.
Yeah, me too.
Even
Like
Serena Deeb,
she is
you can also put Serena Deeb in that conversation. Like, I didn't know Serena was had a big, huge history in wrestling, and that she's this good.
yeah, she's only 35, and it shocked me a little because again she's also like in a very, even Rosa's 35, and with Serena Deeb, she's been put on this pedestal of how like she's one of the original names in wrestling, like in women's wrestling, who has put women's wrestling on the map in the American scene. And people would obviously remember her easily from her time in CM Punk stable. So with that, and like getting to where she is now in AW, like she has a great history by herself. And she was in WWE as a retired coach, right? Serena Deeb, that is.
She and Sarah Amato, where you could say training people in NXT.
Yes, and like from there to eventually becoming a wrestler back, and like having the run that she had with the NWA Championship, it's pretty a sweet renaissance for Serena Deeb. And apparently, like these are just rumors. I don't know how true this is. Triple H wanted Thunder Rosa in WWE, but not as a wrestler. Like similar to Serena Deeb, he wanted Thunder Rosa to become a referee, a female referee.
I don't know, man. You are not doing much research, like a referee seriously.
Yes, like I don't like I need to confirm these, but there are like a lot of reports in the past, and I've
I heard
even
about that.
yeah, yeah, and I have seen like a lot of interviews as well, but she had like briefly mentioned on this topic. Like she's always grateful to Hunter for like how women's wrestling has been cleansed, let's say, in perception of the fans. Like we've come a long way from how women's wrestling was like way back in the day. And now even Gail Kim, for that matter, like she's always praised Hunter for his way of helping cleanse the image of women's wrestling. But they like some of this decisions like these, wanting Thunder Rosa to be a referee is like it comes off as boneheaded, especially given the way that they've been progressing right now. Rosa, Serena Deeb, Gail Kim as well. So yeah,
But she made the right choice, man, with NWA and then AEW.
hands down.
But moving on, we see Brock Anderson and Arn Anderson. So Arn Anderson, is still upset of what happened with Cody and that whole Malachi Black situation where got kicked. So we see Brock Anderson with Arn, and Arn says that Brock wants a match with Malachi Black. So Arn Anderson says that it's a very bad idea because Malachi Black is a very bad man. He's a you could say experienced veteran, something like that. So we are getting a match with Brock and Malachi. You could say this is part of a Cody Rhodes storyline. With this match happening.
Has to be. And there is going to be a murder taking place on AEW next week, on Dynamite next week. So we have to warn our viewers about that, because Malachi is going to smoke poor Brock Anderson.
Even if it's an Anderson, he's going to get murdered.
Yes. But I hope that this whole Cody quote unquote retirement situation, he's definitely coming back and getting his win back over Malachi, isn't he?
That's not a good thing, but I don't mind a second rematch.
Yes, but I hope Malachi still wins that. I don't want Cody to. And this is coming from someone who likes Cody Rhodes. So yeah.
So that's that. We're getting Malachi versus Brock Anderson for next week's Dynamite. Hope it doesn't go, more than a minute, just a few second squash match.
Yes. Did you notice that Malachi's, the Black Mass kick has been renamed to the Sin Eater?
I kind of noticed that.
So yeah, that's also it's a pretty sick name for a move.
Malachi Black is great, man. He can name his moves and whatever you want to call it.
Yes. And with full creative freedom, he's going to get even better, and it's going to be even fun to see. So excited for what happens next week, but poor Brock Anderson.
So from that we get to Ricky Starks. So he was about to go face to face with Brian Cage, but Brian Cage couldn't even make it through the tunnel because he was attacked by Powerhouse Hobbs.
It was good to see Powerhouse Hobbs back. I mean, he was missing from TV because his mom had passed away. So, good to see him back as well. And before, Ricky Starks' entrance, we had Taz in the ring who was introducing everyone. And that's Hook right there. You saw that, right? So he's like, "Oh, I am the human suplex machine Taz, and this is my son." That's Hook right there. And then the camera, closes in on Hook, and he's just like, "Yeah, what's up?" And then he announces Ricky Starks' entrance, and then Ricky Starks looks like 1998 The Rock in this segment, with the small goggles and him, in that shirt. And then he's just calling out Brian Cage, and while Brian Cage is being attacked by Powerhouse Hobbs, and Cage fights back, and then he's like, "Oh shit, this is not happening." And then they just evade all three, Taz, Hook, and Starks. So that's pretty much it for this segment. I mean, this feud is slightly becoming hilarious for reasons beyond their control. They want to promote a serious feud of infighting within a stable, but it's because of how much Taz is a meme, because of how much people are simping for Hook. So it's going in another direction altogether.
I don't have anything to say about this. I said enough.
Yeah, for true. Moving on.
So we hear from Miro, the TNT champion, God's favorite champion.
Favorite
So
champion.
he's still, talking about his hot wife. She is coming to AEW, by the way. And
No, she asked
he he actually, Miro here, actually addresses the Rampage match with Fuego del Sol, where, if Fuego wins, he was about to get a contract, but still, AEW, managed to give him a contract. So this rubbed Miro the wrong way here. And he was constantly, referring that. And he ended the promo by, calling out Eddie Kingston, said that the Redeemer wants to meet you. So a possible match here, Eddie Kingston versus Miro for the TNT Championship. At this point, I think they could do it at the pay-per-view, or I was
they have to
predicting
do it
it.
at the pay-per-view.
Yeah, or else I was predicting it at the Dynamite Grand Slam at the New York show, Arthur Ashe.
Yes. Okay, so I was predicting this match to take place at All Out, but because there isn't much to do for as of now, there's no direction for what Miro is going to do at the show. Now that they've teased a match between Miro and Eddie Kingston, I don't know how is that going to pan out, but the match at Arthur Ashe Stadium makes a lot more sense than having it at All Out in Chicago. Giving Eddie Kingston that hometown pop for
Yes.
when he wins when he wins the championship from Miro, if he wins the championship, that is. But it is a very interesting prospect. Like, people don't really rate. I mean, I don't want to say rate, but Eddie Kingston in the ring and Eddie Kingston on the mic. So there is like a bit of a slope in that case. But I mean, the promos are going to be amazing heading into this match, don't you think?
Yeah, like you said, he is gold on the mic, Eddie Kingston. In ring wise, we haven't seen much, even though he sims a lot for All Japan Pro Wrestling.
Yeah. And like Eddie Kingston has that the serious machismo about him in the ring. So you could probably associate him more towards maybe hardcore matches, or just straight up singles matches, but like actually not singles matches, like more on the stipulation side he works very well. His matches are pretty enjoyable, similar to how his match was with Moxley in that I Quit match last year at Full Gear. So that was intense and great because it had like a lot of storytelling elements, as well as like it was a stipulation match. But as a single, within the rules, I'm not really teetering towards like how Eddie Kingston is, like, to form an opinion on Eddie Kingston in the ring. But the match with Miro is going to be like, not the match, but like I mentioned, the promos are going to be amazing. Just the match, I don't really have a judgment of it on it as of now.
But it should be good, man. Should be good.
Yeah.
But
again,
but he called out Eddie Kingston. But seeing that he was mentioning a lot about Fuego del Sol, so I have a little theory here. So who's the best friend of Fuego del Sol that we learned during the Rampage?
Just a disclaimer, like I also predicted this last week on our Dynamite episode. But yeah, Sammy Guevara.
So I think you could go in that direction as well. You could give Miro versus Sammy Guevara at All Out.
Yes, that match is going to be a lot better, and for the Chicago crowd. And given like all of this, Fuego, like the most of the promo segment was him talking about Fuego. So yeah, that's like an easy direction to take. And like this could probably save, the tease that Miro and Eddie Kingston have a thing. So, this is setting up for the pay-per-view eventually. Miro and Guevara.
And then you can save Kingston for the New York show.
Yes. Isn't the New York show where Bryan Danielson is rumored to be debuting?
Apparently, yes.
Okay, excited.
But yeah, you got these two scenarios here, and Miro is doing well for himself, so it should be pretty well and really exciting.
Yes, like I'm just excited as you are.
But speaking about excitement, shall we move on to the main event?
We shall, but before that, I just want to like there was one segment that we missed was a backstage promo from Dante Martin after his last week's exploits, and then it was a very basic promo that he's just going to show people what he really is, and everyone will remember Dante Martin. So it was kind of generic, but there you go. Like it was just giving him something to do. And
Maybe,
do you want
maybe I think they could give Dante Martin a world title shot if he move up the rankings.
You could do that, but that is a long way to go when you have like already established names. Or maybe you could do something like Jungle Boy or Orange Cassidy, like how they got title shots while being slightly up in the rankings, and then giving them like a few wins here and there to stake their claim. And do you want me to run down the card for yeah, continue
Before you run down the crowd card.
the card.
You just
Yeah.
reminded me that there was a segment involving Matt Hardy and Orange Cassidy where
Oh,
they are setting up
I
something
forgot
for
about
next week.
that too.
You see, there are a
Yes,
lot of hundreds of segments in
segments.
a 2-hour Dynamite. You can't even remember which are which.
Yes. So you want me to run down the card now for next week?
Please do.
Okay. So starting with Rampage this upcoming Friday or today, let's just say it. So we have Jade Cargill versus Kira Hogan. We have Private Party versus Jurassic Express in the Eliminator tournament. And the main event of the show is John Moxley versus Danny Garcia. And the obvious tease is also Darby Allin's challenge for the best in the world. And for next week's Dynamite, we have Varsity Blondes versus Lucha Bros as part of the Eliminator. We have Red Velvet versus Jamie Hayter. That's also official now. And we have Orange Cassidy versus Matt Hardy, which was made during this promo where Matt Hardy calls himself an ass kicker, and Orange Cassidy's like, we'll talk about it. And the last match is obviously Malachi Black versus Brock Anderson. So that's going to be a slaughterhouse of a match. And now let's just head to the main event.
So it
You
was
had something to say?
nothing much. So we'll talk about the main event itself. It was the fifth labor of Jericho, Chris Jericho versus MJF. So we have a stipulation here where Jericho cannot come out to Judas, and he's banned for using the Judas effect. So coming into this match and this stipulation, I'm like, it's just there. We expected something else, but when
It was a lame
MJF came out,
stipulation, to be honest.
like that was a pretty lame stipulation. We came first, MJF made his entrance, so it was Jericho's, so Jericho came out to emptiness, no music here, but I thought that the crowd is going to completely shit with this off sync of Judas. They kind of started roughly, but they caught on, and boy, is it safe to say this was
Magical.
legendary?
Yes, it was magical. Like I am getting goosebumps now, and I did get goosebumps while I was watching the entrance. Like they did mess up in the start. I mean, that's just me being a sarpus. But like at the start, when the lyrics of "I am cold like December snow," when that hit, that's when everyone got into sync, and then like the crowd just like the volume of the crowd just started getting more and more amped up, and from there it became like it was legendary. It was magical, whatever any superlative you want to call it. It fits right in, like any description, any adjective you want to give it to this, please do. And yeah, I mean, it was amazing. Like even like from the entrance to the first few minutes of the match was like the crowd stole the show in that case.
Imagine being Chris Jericho in that scenario. Like, see, these people are singing my themes. What the fuck is going on?
Yes. And like there were obvious memes heading into this, like He was banned from using the Judas theme, but he is a pretty big name in the heavy metal scene, and he's had like a lot of themes. He has like a few songs from his own band that he could have used, or the obvious meme was like, if you're watching an old Chris Jericho match on WCW, the WWE Network guys have dubbed his WWE theme. Like even in WCW, he's using the I got you, yeah, break the walls down theme.
Hmm.
So those were the obvious memes, but this is better than anything you could have asked for. The crowd singing Judas, and even like AEW's Twitter account have been like openly hyping this match, obviously, and they were just like giving the lyrics for. They had posted the lyrics for Judas like every day to help the fans on like if they plan to sing, and this was pretty much a given in that case. But yeah, the execution was fantastic. Let's just say that.
Man, this said a lot about AEW and the fan base of AEW, of how much they love and are appreciate the product. Like, take this this thing with people singing Judas for Chris Jericho. Like, in you see and compare this with a Monday Night Raw from this week. We see
Yes.
a Lily doll winking, and we see plugged in or piped in noises for that shit.
Yes. Also, important note. I remember when Drew McIntyre was making his entrance, and Michael Cole was all of a sudden talking about John Cena and those piped up chants.
I do remember that.
Yes.
I had actually people from Sony shitting on me because I was crying about those initial days of piping noises, and now I think even they are regretting that.
Yes. Feels good to be vindicated, doesn't it?
It does. But with the crowd singing Judas here, boy, the excitement level for this match went up 1 to 100. Like, this
Yes.
crowd is into it. If they are saying Hogan versus Rock for some reason, crowd is going wild from the get-go, and they had a decent match. MJF and Jericho had a decent match, but the crowd made this. I thought this was pretty
Yes.
entertaining and a solid main event. What do you think?
Yes. Hands down. Like the crowd, like I mentioned, like the crowd stole the show for the most part in this match. And the first few minutes of the match entirely relied on crowd work while they were saying like "fuck you, Max," like MJF sucks, and then MJF gets riled up, and then Jericho is Jerry like you mentioned. Imagine being Chris Jericho in this situation. He was literally giggling like a schoolgirl in this match. Like for the first, he was just enjoying the shit out of it, which was like it was fun to see. At the same time, it was heartwarming too for like someone like Jericho, who's a legend in this business, and he's like enjoying this kind of thing.
But the main story of this match was Chris Jericho's the injured arm. So MJF was doing a pretty job, targeting that, even exposing the, what do you call it, that support wrist tape or something like that, a bandage or cast.
Brace.
Yeah, so he was targeting the injured arm, and we also saw MJF stealing Jericho's stuff, not stuff, that spot where he with the camera, which Jericho has been doing for the last 2-3 years now. So
Especially from New Japan.
yeah, so MJ was doing that, and flipping off the crowd. And I loved how, he was flipping off the crowd, showing the crowd, and we pan to Jericho, and Jericho just punches him in the face. That was pretty hilarious. And as we get to the end, so both men were exchanging submission hold. Jericho was going for the walls. MJF was constantly going for the salt of the earth. So as we get to the end, so both men were going for their respective weapons here. So MJF, was going for the diamond ring. Aubrey Edwards caught this, and the diamond ring is, taken off from the equation. So Jericho, he was able to get his Floyd bat. I think he used it and was about to use the Judas effect, but he didn't remember. Yes, this move is banned. So MJF, takes the opportunity to hit a Judas effect of his own, and after that, I think he went for another submission hold.
Salt of the
That's
earth.
and that's where Jericho was forced to tap out. I guess that's the point. I guess, and that's it. Like I said, pretty solid, pretty entertaining main event, and there you go.
Yes, and speaking about that, I mean, you could actually see that MJF has improved drastically in the ring, because you don't really like, even when AEW started, and like his initial matches were like tad bit sloppy, but it's expected of someone of his age slash that. But like, from this was only his second singles win in the entire calendar year. Like, his previous one was versus Sammy Guevara. And with this, like, even in the ranking system, there are a lot of guys ahead of him, just because he didn't have enough singles wins this year alone. And he's undefeated for like since last year, because the only loss that he's had in AEW was Moxley.
Which makes
And
sense. Which makes sense because if he wrestles in limited amount, then he's automatically down in the rankings. And when you want to put him in the world title picture as a number one ranked wrestler, then you can feature him in constant matches and build that ranking.
yes, so I mean, that's amazing of AEW to do that. And another like thing I mentioned, I noticed, was basically like a little attention to detail. Aubrey Edwards has been in all of the labors of Jericho matches, so to see her officiate, that was also good to see. Like, she was there for all of Jericho matches, and MJF hates her for some reason in kayfabe. So, I mean, the camera spot that you mentioned was my favorite moment in the match, where like like he's just flipping off the crowd, and then it comes to Jericho, and then Jericho punches him, and Excalibur is like, there are like fist prints of Jericho on the lens. So that's that, and then Jericho just gives everyone a thumbs up. And Jericho is like, even if at the age of 50, his most of his moves are getting limited, his lion salt and his top rope hurricane rana was still good to see. Like, he's still able to do that pretty well. Even like, there was at one point where he almost killed himself with the lion salt. I don't know who was it against,
Mid
but
pandemic.
yeah, in the pandemic itself. But yeah, it was that match where they were deciding on the number one contenders. Like, everyone in the inner circle was paired up amongst each other, and then we had that Sammy Hagar thing. And yeah, then MJF also stole the heat seeker from Jericho, so that's also a good move. And he's done it better, let's just say that. And like, the finishing sequence where MJF hits the Judas effect, he goes for the salt of the earth. This was the second salt of the earth execution. And then Y2J reverses into a sorry Jericho reverses into a pinfall, and then MJF just puts a stronghold on that, and then Jericho taps out. So, putting, again, tapping out someone like Jericho is also like a huge boost in credibility for MJF, as if like he didn't need that, but again, like, he's pretty high up on the card, and he's like one of the featured acts. Yet this was a huge win for MJF. And like, could we say that this is the end of the feud between Inner Circle and the Pinnacle? Or perhaps not, because we still
No,
have
the
Proud
Pinnacle.
and Powerful versus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you just reminded me. Yeah, the faction warfare, it's over now. Just get off with the singles feud or the individual tag team feuds that they have. The Jericho MJF thing, I don't know. Maybe they could. No, at this point, there's no point of even a rematch. I guess this is
Yes,
the
because
best you could
MJF.
do in this scenario.
Yeah, and MJF has definitively gone over Jericho like twice or thrice now. And plus, you have like Sammy and Shawn Spears also finishing their feud. Now it's only, and even Hager and Wardlow for that matter, that has also been done. So you only have Proud and Powerful versus FTR. So that's the only feud that is left to be done. And again, like, once Cash Wheeler, heals up fully from his gruesome injury, then we'll probably see that match. But apart from that, this feud is definitively over. And where does MJF go from here, or where does Shawn Spears and Wardlow go from here remains to be seen. But except for FTR. So yeah, I
And
mean, what do you predict of MJF after this?
maybe they consider putting these guys in title contention of some sorts.
Yes, but we mentioned, like MJF needs a lot of wins by himself to get into that title picture. But you were saying something before I interrupted you.
Yeah, but before I get to that part, he could get into the title contention, and there's the forbidden door. He can go somewhere and win titles. Who knows? But where does Jericho go? Does it take time off or like what?
He is going to take time off because he was due for a tour with Fozzy. So that was supposed to happen like in early September. But if that happens, his Rampage commitments are also away.
No, he could stay away from Rampage. At least we got the rest of the crew over there.
Yes. But yeah, this is pretty much it for Jericho. I mean, if you can, like, he's been featured for 5 straight weeks or more. You could just give him a break now, because to do away from its staleness, because things get stale pretty quick today in wrestling. So to have Jericho return in the ring would be like, make a big deal out of it later. But there you go. This is probably the best way to write Jericho off television as much. Plus, with the impending Fozzy tour.
So there you go, man. Pretty solid match here with Jericho and MJF, and let's see where this all leads towards. But this was Dynamite.
Yes, can't wait for Rampage tonight.
Definitely, man. But before we leave, where can these guys find you?
So you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Rid_Aman. And if you're watching this in video form, you could see it right below the Adidas logo today.
And you can find Slamhub Wrestling on Twitter at SlamhubW, Instagram at Slamhub Wrestling. You can catch this review on Spotify and Anchor as well. So this was the AEW Dynamite review, and see you guys next time.
Adios.